often when the boat is docked, it's against seawalls. And the problem with seawalls is between the tide changes, other boats coming in and out of the area, wave action, they can take quite a bit of beating, because you basically, on the back you have an anchor. In the front you're usually running 2 ropes, one on either side extended out, and so it's constantly kind of flowing out and banging up, flowing out and banging up. And when it's slamming up against a solid seawall, it can cause some long-term damage. I can see here, I can show you. You can see right there, it splits down the side. We've actually had to run in here and run a bar of stainless steel and run it down the front, down the hull, and run it out a little bit over on this side so that it would act as a buffer, because this thing's constantly ramming up against the seawall this way, and sometimes with great force. And then often when you've got it parked, other boats come in and they don't pay attention to what would be considered maritime etiquette. They'll come flying in to park their boat, and when they do, they create quite a wake, which will really cause the water around it to start chopping up and force all the boats to slam into the seawall. So I'm going to have to modify. I've got somebody that I think can do the job for me like I want, but I'm going to actually put a sleeve, stainless steel sleeve, down the front, down through the bottom up to about there, so that when it bangs against, there's a metal bar that runs all the way down. They'll actually be bolted and epoxied to the end of it, which should really minimize the wear and tear on the front of the boat. It takes quite a bit of a beating. Now, here I got to do some modification. This hole was made because there's a wooden bar that we put down inside that has lights that hang on each side, so we take it out when we go fishing. We can actually illuminate the water on both sides while we're fishing, and it makes it easier sometimes when it's really, really dark, like in the no moon scenarios, or what they call new moon. You can actually run lights sufficient on both sides that you can tell, especially when you throw the lights forward of you, you can tell if you're running up on rather large rocks, which are always a problem when you're in the shallows here in these waters. Now, the boat itself is in excellent shape. There's areas where, because like I said, we're loading hollow blocks and plywood and building materials, and we're constantly running it in and out of the city or over to our farm. So there's areas here that have to be replaced, refurbished, and then completely sanded down, re-epoxied, and painted. So this is something you have to do with the wooden boat about every 4 to 5 years if you use it as much as we do. This is our primary mode of transportation. Our farm is a little over an hour that way. That would be going toward Denogit. Over there, out in the water, that's where you find Sheergow Island. We're actually on, this is the very northern tip of Mindanao. So right in through here is a major inlet coming directly off of the Philippine Sea, and about that way, probably about 15 to 18 kilometers that way is the mouth of the Surigao Straits. So there's a real heavy water flow that comes down through here. Really plays hell between these islands. You get a lot of what they call swirls. Some of them can be absolutely vicious. They'll suck your boat up if you're not careful. A boat this size, as long as you've got a good motor, you usually don't have too much trouble. Now, if you're on one of these small paddle boats or one of these little bitty wooden boats with a underpowered motor, like a 6 to a 10 horse, those swirls can actually be treacherous to you. But this boat is about the perfect size. It's big enough for us to, like I said, when we go visiting relatives and friends, we use it. I got to modify the canopy. The canopy we had before was nice, but it was a solid piece of vinyl. What I want to do is do it to where it has a peak that runs down the top of it, and then the vinyl on both sides, I can actually roll the vinyl up on both edges and pull it to the peak and then tie it off. And then there'll be a permanent canopy, which will actually be a shade cloth. Probably in around 75 to 90% shade. The advantage with that is that when it gets windy and it's not in a rainy environment, the canopy, if it's solid like vinyl, when the wind picks up, it can push you and shove you around pretty good. And if you use a shade cloth, it's more porous, and the air can flow through it better, so it doesn't shove you and push you around near as much. And so when you're out in this thing out in the sun, you've always got that shade over the top of you. But if you look up and the rain clouds are moving in and it's fixing to get really nasty, you can easily just go up there, unlash it, and the vinyl canopy will roll down on both sides, and you can easily secure it, and then once the rain's over, you can roll it all back up again. I haven't seen another boat like that set up here, but a lot of them don't really know what to do with shade cloth. I'm familiar with it. I know its capabilities because I used it to cover all my greenhouses and my shade houses. And I learned a long time ago, if you got canvas and using it for a shade house, when the wind picks up, it will pick your greenhouses up, and you'll pick them up in the next county because it flies like the flying nun. But if you use shade cloth, usually it can endure the high winds because it's porous enough that the air will actually transfer through it and it doesn't bellow. It's the bellowing that causes your damage. Now, here's another project I got to get done. Let me walk over here, excuse me. When we first built the boat, we had a single shaft, you see it here, because we had mounted a, here, as you see on this mount, we had mounted a 16 horse gas motor, gas engine, I guess you'd want to call it. And it was all right, but it was really underpowered. And we soon realized, especially when we got into some of these areas around here, and the weather was really kicking the tides up, that in between the islands and out here in the main strait, it was really 16 horses, the size of this boat, just wasn't safe. So we added an additional 16. The problem is because of the shape of the hull and the people that had put it in were a little bit on the lazy side, they opted to run it out the side. You can see it over there where it sticks out. Well, they were satisfied with it. I never was. As you see here, you can see from the first shaft to this shaft the angle that is sticking out. The problem is that once you get out here, and you walk around, you can see where the first shaft comes out the back. This shaft comes out at a slight angle. So in this area out in here, it creates a certain amount of turbulence. Plus, the way it's set out, you have to run a longer piece of stainless steel for the propeller than you did in the back. This causes both drag and resistance, as well as a shaft bouncing up and down, causes an unnecessary vibration. So not only does it you feel the vibration when you've got 24 horses spinning out and you're really pushing it pretty hard, you can feel that unnecessary vibration. Also, that turbulence, although you may not notice it much, that drag is really insufficient because you're losing power and also burning more fuel that you wouldn't normally have to do. So I'm definitely going to alter it and then run both shafts running out the back together, one just slightly lower than the other. And that should resolve that issue with no problem. But it's just little things that have to be done. I got areas I'm going to modify the seats. I didn't like the first design of the seats. I think I could also design the seats in such a way that it gives me a little additional storage directly underneath the seats. I can have little partitions where I can raise the seats and I can actually store. This would be a lot better place to be able to put all the life jackets instead of trying to stuff them all over here. Kind of out of sight, out of mind. When we get the canopy, we generally have to tie the life jackets to the outer canopy, and there have been some times when we've come back from the city, someone liked ours life jackets and they would steal a few of them. Well, they run about, a good life jacket runs about $50, $60. That's kind of expensive. Now, I'm sure in their mind they're just permanently borrowing it, but to us they're stealing it. But I guess that's just a difference in a way a person's raised. But I'd much prefer to be able to put them under the seat and no one realize that they can be lifted up. Out of sight, out of mind. A padlock's only meant to keep honest people honest anyway. So if you keep it out of their sight, they tend to be more honest. Plus, they're cracking down on the life jackets, so when they get a couple extra bodies on there, they tend to go steal the boat next to them so they don't get a ticket. Now, they can buy their own. But anyway, this is going to be our project. Like I did when I did the initial construction of this boat, that had involved tearing down the original boat that this solid hull you see here. It has a solid wood hull that runs all the way down the line. I prefer the solid hull. I've had people turn around and tell me, "Oh, you can use plywood. It's great. You got glues. It's cheap." And I'm like, "Yes, but this is a 34-foot boat that sometimes carries a heavy load, that has to go through an area that is notorious for having treacherous stones and rocks just below the water surface. And you can go one direction and it's absolutely perfect, and then you come back 2 hours later and you're basically dribbling off of the sea bottom. Not a good idea when you're overloaded and having a boat made out of inferior plywood, because the plywood here is not to the quality that you can find in the States. It took me a while to finally find a place that has decent plywood. So there's some areas here that have the old plywood, although it was considered Santa Rosa high quality. I didn't like it. You can kind of see here. This is a high quality Santa Rosa, and it should not have done that in 4 years. You can see if this is their premium grade, that's not to the standard that we're normally looked at. And you can see here how it cracks and separates. I would prefer to tear this completely off and then put a brand new premium grade. I'm also probably going to bring this out a little bit wider down the side so that when this thing's bouncing around, you don't get as much splash up that you would normally get coming off the water. Because if this thing's a little bit wider, the water would tend to flow away and kick it away from the boat. When you're sitting here and you're going through the water, even though it's nice, narrow, if this thing starts bouncing when the sea goes, you can kick up wave water up in here. And I really don't like that. And so I'm going to put a wider. Plus, I may be only 5'10", but I weigh about 230 pounds. I'm kind of girthy, and I need a little more narrow path to climb up on here. Plus, I use a cane, so I want to make sure that I have a little bit wider. So if I extend it out this way a little bit by a couple of inches and out this way a couple of inches, it'll be much more easier for me to be able to get up and get on and off the boat as well. Because there's been a couple of times I went to get off of it with the cane and almost wound up being a YouTube video moment. And I really don't like that. So there's a few modifications. But as I start doing this, I'll do like I did the other boat. I will, when I first built Arthur, I will list all the materials, do a step-by-step, give prices, all the equipment that was used, anything that I do on it, I will write about it as well as shoot video. So people that are interested in building a boat can look at them and kind of get a general idea of a way to properly build them. Because this boat has taken a beating. And we knew it would. When we started building this lobster hatchery, all the material for the hatchery had to be brought here. And the only way it was brought here was on this boat. That's why I say it's also our pickup truck. When we built these, when my wife started making these bungalows, all the wood that was on that came from Arthur. When we add or do anything to this place, it has to be loaded and brought in by boat on here. And also we use it for our get around. We take it back and forth to the farm, to other islands as we visit friends and relatives, and this is our Cadillac as well. So it's very versatile, and we have to keep it up and nice. Now, when I build the Arthur 2, it will be about 46 feet. And the advantage with that boat is that it will be much wider and be able to do much more efficiently handling the loads that we need. But unfortunately, there's a downside because it won't be able to go into the areas that Arthur 1 can fit into. So this boat will always be viable because it's kind of hard. If this one's difficult to move around at 32 feet to 34 feet, it's even more so when you're going to be in a boat that's going to be between 45 and 46 feet. So this boat will still get into areas, because I love to fish, this boat will still get us into areas that I'd never try to get in with the 45, 46 footer. So Arthur 1 and Arthur 2, when I get Arthur 2 built, will be our primary mode of transportation. And when we get Arthur two built, it'll take most of the workload off of this. So I won't have to be doing repairs and stuff quite as much on this one. This one has been a workhorse, and I'm very proud of it for what we did to it, for what we spent on it, for what I learned on it, just in the experience of it. I have more than got my money's worth out of this boat. I figure I'll probably drop about another 30,000 pesos on it, maybe 40,000 pesos. So I'll drop, probably less than $1,000, not including if I upgrade the motors. But I'll spend probably a little less than $1,000 for all the materials and stuff that would do. And I get the satisfaction of building it, which I enjoy. And it will be another outstanding boat for another 5 years, 6 years. So build them right, even though you spend a little bit of money on them, because they pay for themselves, more than pay for themselves. And it's something that you'll want, especially if you live on these little islands like I do. Now, if you're in the city, don't waste your money on one. Find you friends that have boats and just pay for fuel in their boats, and then you'll be okay. As far as myself, I have the common sense of having a person that I absolutely trust as an experienced boatman, and he has somebody that he uses that he trusts to handle the front of the boat while he sits back there and operates the boat. And I get to sit there and relax and have a good time and throw a hook. Because if you do not know these waters, you may think you're a big bad bass fisherman. You get out there and you screw up, you are going to be injured or you are going to die. I'm just telling you. I've seen a lot of old boys come here and go to build boats, and they wind up selling them pretty quick because they get out there and get in situations that scare the hell out of them. This ain't lake fishing, bubs. If you get out in that deeper water and it starts, 1 minute it looks beautiful, next thing you're bobbing up and down, hanging on the side, wondering where all that nasty weather come from. And if you happen to lose your boat and you go in the water, there are things out there that consider you food. So respect the water, because I'll tell you what, it damn sure don't respect you. And some of these waters out here are absolutely treacherous. I kayak out here quite a bit, and I'm telling you, there are only certain times of the day that I go kayaking. Now on this side it's ocean, it's not too bad. Now on the other side of this island, over there, that's all deep water mangrove. That's a completely different experience there. Those shallow waters run through there. There's some areas in there that it actually starts making vortexes. It's like pulling the water or pulling the plug out of a bath water. And sometimes it moves exactly the same way. And if you're in a little boat or a paddle boat and you don't know what you're doing, you might find yourself being sucked under. Because some of these areas out here are notorious for taking little boats, sucking them under, and parts of the boat and the boatman will eventually start popping back to the surface after half a kilometer or a kilometer. It will kill you. Those waters out in here, it takes professional fishermen whose families have lived here for generations. It takes them, and they know exactly what to look for. So respect the water. The best advice I can give you is get you a boat that you're comfortable with. Provide all the safety precautions. Build it solid. Build it well. And enjoy it. And have somebody that really knows the water and knows what to encounter. Let them do the driving for you. You just tell them, I want to go there. And if you do that, these are a wonderful investment. And a boatman don't cost much. So usually they maintain, take care of it, keep it up for you. The one that I have with me, I absolutely love it. He breaks my motors down, he cleans them, maintains them, keeps the boat in upkeep. At any moment I can tell him we need the boat and it's in the water and we are gone. But I don't have to worry about this so much. It's one of the reasons why this one has been able to handle pretty much uninterrupted for the last 5 years. Whenever there's a little thing that has to be done, it's repaired. The motor's kept at a high degree of readiness, and we can easily get into it and out in the water within just a matter of a few minutes. And when we get back, we can pull it out of the water just as easily. But I love boating around here. I particularly like fishing, and I just like exploring. When you get in here and you just say, I want to go there, and you can get out and just explore the water here, it is a great investment. But anyway, I'm going to shut up and put this thing off and add it. And then as I start doing the boat, I will repost this when I start doing the boat build. And then I will start adding all the new work done. And when it's completed, I'll add it on here as well. So y'all have a good day. Oh, isn't this a great way to be quarantined from the virus? I absolutely love it.